Welcome back. This is Jeff Segor, and this is the third video in the series of my Programmer's Journal. Creating this recipe manager web application. So we're now at the stage we've installed some basic packages or modules through npm to our Angular application. So now we're going to go through and install Elasticsearch, and then the Kibana manager that allows you to view in the data, and we'll be able to create the first indices that are needed for the recipe documents. So what you do, the first thing is to go to the Elastic website and download the latest version of Elasticsearch. It's at this website. You download it. It's a zip file. Put it into a directory. I've got an applications directory. You do the same thing for Kibana. Kibana also has a matching version. Download that as a zip file and put it into a directory. So right now, we go to my directory here. I've downloaded the zip files 831, and then I expanded it, and now I've got these two directories for Elasticsearch and for Kibana. So it should have the structure. What we're going to do is, the first thing is I'm going to modify a configuration in here, the Elasticsearch YAML file. If we bring this in, each of these statements in here that has a pound, it basically is a comment. So this just kind of gives you some idea of how to configure. What I'm going to do is, since this is going to represent a node, rather than run this off a local host, I want this database possibly to span multiple computers. So in the previous video, we found the IP address of my computer, this device, and it was 192.168.1.203. What I'm going to do is, in this statement right here, I'm going to add that in so it recognizes this as a host. Now, by default, if I don't specify the port number, it's going to be 9200. It's important that when you make the statement, it has to be in the first column, otherwise you'll get errors. 203. Now, if you notice this file, it sort of ends at this various line here. What will happen is, when I run this the first time, it's going to add some security. By default, security is going to be turned on, and it'll add some more statements for the security. What it's also going to do is it's going to create a token. That token is needed when you set up Kibana for the first time. So it sort of locks in on a machine, a specific security token, so that's with the application itself. And this is becoming more and more standard. You have something similar when you're trying to access the API, create applications that interact with Google widgets like the calendar or email, Gmail, and so forth. So so I'm going to save this off. Then I'm going to bring up a command line, a DOS command line, and go into the Elasticsearch directory in the binary directory. So this be elastic 0.3 binary, and I'm going to call this directly. Looks like it was successful. This Segor is is sort of an alias for that IP address. I'm going to say allow access. Now at the end of this, it's going to send us a special message, which we're going to save. And it contains some security information. In order to access Elastic with the security turned on, you need a password. The user ID is going to be Elastic, and then it's going to be using this thing you save in a special place. Since this is a public video, obviously I'm going to rerun this, so this is only good for this demo. Also, it creates this token, and this is what we're going to use for Kibana during the setup of Kibana. I'm going to take this. Actually, I'm going to take this entire message here and store it. I'm going to store it in a notepad document so we can refer to it. Also, when we actually start programming, we will have to have both a CA certificate, and we need to have the username password in order to access this from the program. That is usually stored in an environment variable on the computer, so you don't see the actual password in the code. Okay, so this is actually now running. Elasticsearch is running as a node. There's a slide that will go into a little bit of how the structure of Elasticsearch works shortly. Let's go back. There are slides. So we've done this. Now there's another piece here that we can do within our program. In order to access Elasticsearch, we have to install a package, npm package or module, and we might as well do that right now. So if we go back to our program, which is here, we'll go into recipes, and we're going to use an npm command to install this. So we have a tool that accesses Elasticsearch. And so it's going to be, we're going to install. It's called Elastic. You can actually find it up on GitHub, the source code for this. We'll run it, and we want to store this in the package JSON file, so we added the -- save here. This version is slightly older than the version number, is slightly behind, but it still should work. So now if we look at package, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, this is a problem. This is my actual recipes one. We have to go to the tutorial. This is the one that we're, so let's go to recipes. Yeah, I've already done the recipes program. That's the finished one, or partially finished one. This is the one that we're working on. So we've gone into here. There's no vulnerabilities. So if we look, whenever we install a package, we should see in the package JSON file a new entry, and there's our Elasticsearch, and this is the version. So slightly behind, but they'll probably catch up. So if we go back to, so we've done this. Now we're going to run Kibana. We're going to run the setup first because it's going to install some setup information in the configuration file of Kibana. Now the way that works is we're going to be running this from the command line within Kibana, but we need that token that we had gotten from Elasticsearch. So we're going to copy this piece here. This is the part that got me when I first, this was fairly new, this new security. So when I installed this, this was not totally obvious. And now I'm going to take this string. I'm going to go to a new command line. So I'm going to create a new command line within Kibana. So these are how these tools are executed. Go into Kibana. I have an older version, so we'll go to the 8 version. Go into the binary directory, and then I'm going to run this statement here. Now we have 30, it says you have 30 minutes to put this in, so we're within that range. Otherwise it expires, and then there is a mechanism, it describes how you can create a new token if you need it. This will take a few seconds or a minute. So now it's done successfully. Nice to have success. So in order to access, and so once this is done, we can now run Kibana, just like we did Elasticsearch. This may take about a minute to initialize. So this interacts. You can see that there's information coming from Elasticsearch process, and Kibana here is starting. Give it a couple moments here, and then what we're going to do is we access Kibana through the local host. We're going to be accessing the database through the computer's API. But when we go through Kibana, it's going to be the local host at 5601 is the port number. So I think this might be enough time. Let me switch back. Let's see if I can find a good, we'll go to Google. We'll do localhost 5601, and it looks successful. So what it'll do is it'll prompt you for the Elasticsearch password username. So this is going to be Elastic, it's the username. And then from the message that we got back, we used this password. And so now we've got this full web application running, which is Kibana. Now there's a lot to this, and I haven't actually gone through all the different pieces of this. This might be worth a video later on. But for now, I'm only going to use one part of it, and that is to create the indexes and initialize our document schema. And there's a tool here. If you use this drop-down menu, if you go to Management Dev Tools, this allows you to do these commands to be able to access and create our tables. I'm from old school, so I still refer to these as tables. They're essentially documents in Elasticsearch. And we'll do that now. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how all this works. Again, I don't want to get bogged down in a lot of details. There's a lot of documentation on the Elastic site describing how this query language works. But we're basically using kind of REST calls. REST is an API that you can use to access information on the web, and it uses about 4 or 5 sort of key verbs: get, put, post, and delete. And then it uses this, within here, we use this format again. JSON seems to keep popping up, using a JSON format to as a command structure to be able to control the database. So let's go back. Let's go back to this. We've done this. Essentially, we configured it. We did the first launch, and now I'm going to just do just point to this particular site. This is a brief discussion of how Elastic clusters work and some of the terminology. So a cluster is 3 or more nodes. A node essentially is an instance. So when I ran, if we look for this command prompt Elasticsearch, this is considered a node. When I run this process, this is a node. It refers to an instance of Elasticsearch. Usually you spread this in multiple computers, and what it does is it spreads all the documents among multiple computers, so you can expand, have a large amount of data. Index is a collection of Elasticsearch documents distributed among the nodes. A document is analogous to a record instance in a relational database. A shard is index is made up of multiple shards, each containing parts of an index, and each index contains one primary shard and one replica. Replicas are used to back up documents. All the data is defined in JSON format, and then the query language that we're using was also in JSON. Now, if you go to this website here, this has some pictures kind of describing how this is structured. So if you launch an instance on, say, a computer, so you can think of these could be on different computers, it'll start creating these shards based on the tables that you have. We'll see that when we actually start creating the recipes. We can kind of view into how the shards are being. This is done automatically. And then these are some of the definitions that we were talking about here. So you can read that. We'll go into this a little bit later when we actually have some real data in here, but this is a way you can make this call from the browser to actually look at your tables and how they're spread through it. On my computer, this is my IP address, and so using the port 9200 allows us to go into and make requests to the Elasticsearch database. We'll see that we do this internally in the program as well, but we use a different API that can be done in a slightly different way using our server. I just want to highlight that there's this nice site here that what you can do is you can verify whether or not that you've got the JSON format correct. So this is a JSON viewer, and it does some validation and so forth. So this is kind of handy to use sometimes. Well, we may start using it. So now we're back to what we were talked about before, our actual application. So we've installed most of the items that we need, and we can start actually programming. I'll probably do that in the next video to keep each of these videos down to no more than 20 minutes. So in the next video, we will create some indexes or indices, and we will populate. I've got some predefined recipes, and we're going to create the code that we need in our on our server to import this data. So until next time, happy computing.